hey, the rich and famous need care as well, especially them because they all have herpes. That's a quote from the episode. That's not just me saying celebrities have herpes, but I'm sure it's true.
It's a known fact.
Welcome back to another episode of The Rank. I'm John, and today we're going to be ranking the next episode of the Mindy Project. Now, for those of you who are new to the show, I'm going to give you an agenda real quick. We start with the potent notables, which are just a couple interesting facts or tidbits that I found out about the episode or series. Then we do the episode overview, which is where I talk about the episode from beginning to end. And then I do the rank, which is the namesake of the show, where I rank the episode in 5 categories on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best, all to figure out what is the best sitcom of all time. And today we're going to be ranking the 18th episode of the second season of the Mindy Project, titled Girl Crush, written by Chris Schleicher and directed by David Rogers. Now, this series has been out for a while. It is available on Hulu to watch, so just so you know, there will be spoilers ahead. But let's get started and find out how this episode ranks, starting with the potent notables.
Potent notables.
So the 18th episode of the second season also aired on Tuesday, April 8th, 2014. I say also because last week's episode did as well. Mindy actually got the same amount of viewers for the 9:30 episode as the 9 o'clock episode, 2.3 million. Interestingly though, this one's rating was 0.1 higher for some reason. Now, a lot of this will be the same from last week, like it also lost to the NCAA Women's Basketball Championship on ESPN, and Amish Mafia on Discovery, and NCIS Los Angeles on CBS, but it did have some direct competition as well, like Growing Up Fisher on NBC, which had 5.5 million viewers, or The Trophy Wife on ABC, which did beat Mindy, but not actually by that much, as it only did 2.8 million. I mean, Mindy still lost by 500,000, but you know, that feels a lot closer. So next potent notable is that Carolyn Lagerfeld and Joanna Garcia Swisher, who were guest stars in this episode, would years later play mother and daughter in Sweet Magnolias, which is kind of fun. This episode also features guest star Anna Gunn, who is well known for playing Skylar White on Breaking Bad, and Mindy has actually talked about in character on these episodes her Breaking Bad addiction many times, including in the episode prior to this one. So you'd think she would have recognized her. Anyway, those are the potent notables. Let's go to the episode overview. We start off this episode with another Mindy voiceover, and this time it does go back to who she's actually telling it to, which I was appreciative of. She's telling it to a janitor while she's sitting with her food in a janitor's closet, but what she's talking about with said janitor is what has led her to being there, with a little context. The context about her not handling breakups well gives us a montage of her struggling with breakups going all the way back to the pilot, which was fun. This leads right to the Danny one, which she's handling remarkably better, but feels worse to her because she can't throw herself into work because he's at her work. There was a fun bit where he gets on the subway and she's on it, and then a couple next to Mindy start making out, appropriately a white guy and a brown girl, and the girl says, "I love you, Danny," and she's like, come on. I mean, that's good stuff. We continue on with how awkward it is at work, with a highlight of one meeting in particular where Mindy refuses to sit next to Danny and eventually just takes a knee. I feel for her on this one. Workplace breakups are really tough. Of course, that brings us to the janitor, and Mindy is sitting on the bucket the janitor needs to clean a urinal that someone has defecated. That always makes me think of middle school, because I remember going into the bathroom when I was in like 7th grade. It was right after a mentally challenged kid had been in there. I remember feeling bad because I walked in, I was like, oh my God, the smell is just terrible. And I didn't want to make a scene, it's just the poor kid, mentally challenged, whatever. But he had shit in the urinal. It's such a visceral memory for me because the stench was just inescapable. And even now it makes me want to gag.
Ew, thanks for sharing.
That was a fun little trip down memory lane. Let's get back to Mindy. Shortly after this, we're going to see Mindy meet the girl crush that the title was implying, and it's Sheila Hamilton. Apparently, she's the gyno to the stars and seemingly is recruiting Mindy. Also, Sheila is Anna Gunn, more commonly remembered for playing Walter White's wife, Skylar, on Breaking Bad. She's apparently well known in the gyno community, with all the guys at Mindy's practice calling her some variation of Hollywood Hamilton, with Peter calling her exactly that. But that's the A story. Mindy flirting with the idea of working for Sheila Hamilton, mostly because she works with celebrities, but also because, as Mindy says, they don't appreciate the work she does there. Of course, Danny says that people shouldn't be praised for doing what they're supposed to do, which is why he refuses to clap when an airplane lands. That was always a weird one to me too, but it doesn't bother me as much as clapping at the end of a movie in the theater. Just like, who are we doing that for? We're soon going to discover the B story though, which is a combination of, first, Jeremy says they've got their van for Peter's idea of going to underserved communities and offering care, and second, that Danny is going to inexplicably try to hook up with Peter's sister. Now, on the bus itself, they have a wrap with pictures of all of them. The guys look great, but Mindy is mid-sneeze for some reason, which was really goofy. Also, when we meet Peter's sister, who's played by Joanna Garcia Swisher, is it just me or did she look like Kate Mara? Like when she first came on, I was like, did Kate Mara guest star on this episode? And I paused it and had to re-look up who played Peter's sister. Maybe it was just me. Let me know in the comments if I'm crazy. Either way, she clearly likes Danny and Peter rightfully tells Danny to fuck off. Come on, Danny. At least have the decency to not pick up girls in front of Mindy. Also, lay off friends' sisters. While Jeremy is trying to get people to join him in the van to go to Spaniards Harlem, which I thought was a really funny way to say that, Danny and Peter are upset with each other and Mindy is off getting wooed by Sheila Hamilton. Naturally, they discover where Mindy is and they chastise her. And then her lie doesn't work because she's holding a model of her uterus that Sheila gave her that she 3D printed somehow, and Morgan could recognize her uterus anywhere. Anywhere. But she's off to meet Sheila for lunch and she's not super thrilled with the guys. The guys, not super thrilled with her, go off to Harlem without her to offer free breast exams. Now, if that sentence didn't clue you in, like it should have clued them in, I'll spell it out more directly. They are 4 white men going to Spanish Harlem to offer free breast exams on a bus. So yeah, pretty sure that's a porno. Now Mindy agrees to join Sheila, but finds out that Sheila's high-end practice doesn't take insurance, and therefore she wouldn't be able to take along any of her patients. Hey, the rich and famous need care as well, especially them because they all have herpes. That's a quote from the episode. That's not just me saying celebrities have herpes, but I'm sure it's true.
It's a known fact.
But Mindy won't let her clients go and ends up turning down Sheila. Now, what I like about Mindy is that when she goes back to Shulman's and discovers all her stuff at the curb, which is fucked up by the way, she goes back to Sheila, but still insists on letting her have her clients. Of course, they've moved on and Mindy realizes that they just needed a woman of color. It wasn't about her. Then she gets a text from Morgan begging for help as they've been accosted because nobody believes that they're actually doctors looking to do free breast exams. Of course, he ends up adding only because Mindy's a woman, which was a nice touch for the moment. Then we get a scene that is just super odd. Mindy saves them with a speech that has to be translated into Spanish by Jeremy. What? They end up getting one client thanks to Mindy, and then Mindy insists on driving the bus back to the office and promptly crashes. That's the whole episode. Let's see how it ranked.
A rank.
So the rank is where I rank the episode based on 5 categories: story, acting, dialogue, episode coherence, and character relatability. I rank it on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. And then I have a laugh counter where I tally up the amount of times the episode made me laugh out loud. 1 point per laugh out loud gets added to the score. And before I dive into the rankings, I just want to say if you're enjoying this episode, please leave a like down below. It really does help us out. But the first category is story, and I gave story a 3. So taken out of the series, if someone were to present this story, I'd say, that's decent, sure. I mean, it's the story of Mindy flirting with being with a celebrity practice and Danny flirting with Peter's sister as they're trying to offer free medical service to an underserved community. There's a little too much going on, but while Mindy thinking about leaving really works, the whole Mindy and Danny working well together and Danny trying to bang Peter's sister feels really far off. I mean, think about the idea that this episode aired directly after the last one. There needed to be more time in between for this. So let's go to acting, which I give a 4. Acting is good as usual. I thought Anna Gunn was actually excellent in her guest role. I think for me, the scene near the end where Mindy gets them out of the jam that they're in was not super well done. It just felt awkward and it brought the score down for me. So let's go to dialogue, which I gave a 3.25. You know, it's not the writing that was bad. It was fun and silly for the most part, but it also just wasn't as funny as it usually is. And when they did have stuff that should have made me laugh, it didn't because they were taking such a weird angle with everything. This felt like a throwaway episode to me. So let's go to episode coherence, which I gave a 2.25. I don't really get what they're trying to do here. It was super awkward between Danny and Mindy. Then it wasn't, then it was again. Mindy getting a job offer suddenly was weird, but actually was decent coherence. But then her saving the men of the practice was really odd and didn't really work for me. Then we had Danny trying to get with Peter's sister, and it all just felt like they should have just kept Mindy and Danny together, and the decision not to led them to grasp at straws. So let's go to character relatability, which I gave a 3.5. Everyone is relatively relatable. I mean, I get why Sheila wanted to get a minority, why Mindy considered going over to her, and why she ultimately decided against it. I get where Peter was coming from as well, like fuck off Danny. Danny is probably the least relatable, but I also get trying to find a rebound. But doing it at work with a coworker's sister in front of your coworker ex-girlfriend is just real dumb. All right, so kind of an up and down ranking here, mostly down. It's going to need a decent laugh counter to stay out of the bottom 3 tiers, and it didn't really get one. It got me 12 times. So that puts the grand total up to 28 for this episode of the Mindy Project, and that puts it in the mediocre. As for the series average, it goes to 35.9, stalling some of the past few episodes' work on increasing the score, but still keeping it in the holy grail. So thanks for listening and or watching. If you'd like to see a list of our episode and series rankings, you can do that on our website at therankpodcast.com. Now, if you've been enjoying these episodes, you're just a fan of the Mindy Project and enjoy consuming content about it, please consider subscribing and or following. Like the episode, comment. You can reach out to me at info@therankpodcast.com with your questions, suggestions, whatever. I will respond to you. If you want to support us monetarily, please do at our Patreon site at patreon.com/therankpodcast. But I will leave you with this. They wanted a soda tie-in called Girl Crush for this episode. It was basically Strawberry Crush with just a hint of poor decision making.
Okay, I'm waiting for the punchline.
Do you have Crush in Jamaica, Antonio? I don't know if you do, but it's a like they make orange soda and grape soda.
Welcome to Antonio Fun Facts with John Bott. Antonio actually doesn't know what soda brands are in Jamaica, because he hasn't had soda in over 10 years. But enough about Antonio, let's laugh at John messing up.
While Jeremy is trying to get people to join him in the van to go to Spaniard's Harlem. Cut! While Jeremy is trying to get to... Cut! While Jeremy is trying to get people to... Cut!
Take 3.
While Jeremy is trying to get people to join him in the van to go to Spaniard's Harlem. Fuck.